and we'll kind of run through the agenda. If anyone has anything else they can think of that they would like to either talk about at this session or next time. Again, this shared document, which is the same as where you're typing the table. If you scroll up, we've got the agenda. Feel free to put stuff in A or B, and we'll try and come into it as soon as we can. Okay. So welcome to new members. And normally what we would do is we would quite quickly break out into small groups. But in the interest of time today, let's see how far we get. And we might be able to do mini breakout groups towards the end of the meeting, just so you can talk to other people. We've done our introductions in the table, which is lovely to see. So I wanted to share the news that we have co-opted Luke Searle from Southampton and Cordelia Webb, who is now in Leeds, to join us as kind of joint organizers. It doesn't take a lot of organizing. Jenny and I sometimes just have a quick chat, and then, you know, we pretty much just create a rough agenda, and that's it. But we do like to kind of make sure we add value to the group by, you know, thinking about things that we're all interested in, trying to find some speakers sometimes if it's relevant, or just finding the time to explore things. So thank you very much, Luke and Cordelia. Would you like to say a few words, either of you?
I can always fill in space. Very, very excited to be co-leading this group. It's quite a cool group, and it seems to have had that longevity, which a lot of working groups kind of had that flash in the pan moment but dwindle out. But it seems like we've got a really committed sort of community here, and it keeps growing as well. Every time we have a meeting, there's always new faces, which is just awesome.
Thanks, Luke. Cordelia?
Yeah, no, just kind of the same. It's surprising there's such a big community in some ways, and it's nice to be part of that.
Thank you. No, that's fabulous. Okay. So I think you've said it very well. We're very kind of it's a meeting of minds. Those of us who are interested in accessible maths, asking questions. We don't have all the answers, but between us, we're a lot closer to understanding what accessible maths is than trying to go it alone, let's say. Okay, so now Jenny was going to be the person to kind of raise this thing about Jupyter Notebooks accessible or not. She's not here. However, I don't know, Poppy, if you're aware of the use of Jupyter Notebooks in Sheffield and whether there's anything you can share with us.
Yeah, I do use them and have been using them to create templates for some of our resources, but I haven't caught up with Jenny for a few weeks, so I don't entirely know what that is. Apologies.
Okay, no, not to worry. What I will say on a parallel, it's not an issue, but I'm going to turn to people like David Hodge, who knows a lot more about R than me, that when I was kind of testing the output of Markdown, Gitbook basically, again, I had a few kind of queries about the accessibility of some of the output, you know, in terms of structure, etc. So that was something maybe we can take to our next meeting, because I think I haven't formulated that question properly for R yet, or rather Gitbook yet. So yes, we'll move that on to our next meeting. I think that's an action to add to the next meeting's agenda. So one thing we do have to share, which feels like a bit of progress in terms of understanding. I'm always, when I look at maths on the web, I'm always testing the Walker, which is a way of viewing whether the maths has Mathjax on it. Are people here familiar with the Walker in Mathjax? I'm just going to type that Walker in Mathjax. I don't know if you want to kind of just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Just see whether thumbs up. I can see some downs. Okay, some ups. Okay, I'll just very quickly. Let me get a page open, and we might as well record it for posterity as well, actually. I'm just going to explain what I mean when I say the Mathjax Walker. So let me disable my screen colors, etc., and share screen. Watch me not do this right. Okay. So on a page with maths, in theory, if you've got Mathjax running and the right version of Mathjax as well, what you'll be able to do is you can tab to an equation because it's an active thing. Then you press enter, and then I can use the down arrow to reduce the amount of expression that is going to be explored. Okay, so this is the Walker, by the way. And then I can move to the right with my right arrow to have just that part of the expression read out to me or available on my Braille. And I can then move up arrow and hear more of it. Okay, so this idea that you can explore an equation with keyboard access is quite important, because obviously you don't want to hear an entire 2-line equation in one go. It's just too much to take in. So this is part of one of the aspects of accessible maths. But what we discovered was that on certain websites, especially for instance, that was outputting from Mathjax on R, for instance. Let me just pick up something else. Okay, I think this is a kind of R Markdown output. I can, as you see, I can jump to the equations. Let me just zoom in a bit. But then when I press enter, nothing's happening. If I go right arrow, it just moves the page instead of the Walker coming up. And what that is, so even though Mathjax is available on here, which I can tell if I right click, because this menu pops up, and even if I ensure that the Explorer is active, which it is because it's ticked, it's not responding. And so this was an issue that I was witnessing, and I was asking Emma Cliff, who is our real expert on this, really, what that issue was. And she went away and did a lot of research on it and came back with the information that you see in this document that says possible RMD issue with hard-coded Mathjax version. So basically on R, you by default may be outputting Mathjax version 2.7.2, or rather the Mathjax that's being pointed to is that version. So Emma then explains, how you can kind of change it to a minimum version of 2.7.9 instead. And ideally, you might think, let's just point to the latest version instead. Just always go to the latest. And she discovered a problem with the latest version in 3.x, that it isn't automatic line breaks aren't being implemented yet. So we may not want to use the latest version at the moment. The best version is 2.7.9. Now I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let people ask questions, and then can people who are a little bit brighter than me, I'm looking at you, David, and anyone else who uses R, might be able to answer those questions. So I'm just going to stop talking for a few minutes.
I'll jump in and just add the weird history. I think seems to be, can you hear me right?
Yeah.
I think the version 3 of Mathjax came out, and it was known to not be brilliant. So they left hard coded in to things like when you install Bookdown, it's got built into it not to point to the latest version of Mathjax, but to point to a specific version. That it seems like they released 2.7.9 after version 3 came out of Mathjax, which is then why they didn't update that number, it looks like.
Okay.
But it sounds like 2.7.9 is the newest version before version 3 came out. I think
Okay. Thank
it's the
you.
one that was known to work.
Now, I'm just reflecting on the fact that if this was my first ever accessible maths meeting, this would sound totally frightening and scary. All I can say is keep coming and immersing yourself in that language. We do have a glossary on our LI GitHub site. All the links are on this shared document, and I think you just have to keep at it. That's all I can say. When it's new words, sometimes you just have to keep at it until it makes sense. Okay, so that's for people who do use R, by the way, so might not relate to everyone here. Okay, so we wanted to make sure that that people were aware of this, because obviously some of us are starting to go down the route of seeing our lecturers use R Markdown to output web versions and PDF versions of their course notes. Okay. So just very quickly as well, we're just going to review our table. What do you hope to achieve or explore this year? Now I will share screen for a bit so that it's kind of something I can see if we can kind of work through together for a few minutes. So what are you working on now? So this was at our last meeting in September. And I know it's only been a couple of months, but a couple of months is quite useful to look back on what we hoped we were going to set off on in this academic year, to kind of maybe even if you wrote in here before, maybe a little update. If you've not written in here before, do add a row. I'm just going to suggest there are a few rows at the bottom. And I might just add another couple of, insert 2 rows below, just to make sure there's plenty of space for people to write. And if it's your first time filling that in, or if you filled this in before but didn't have time to read what other people were working on, I'm going to suggest that I'm going to shut up for 2 minutes and we just explore this document. And then I will we can take questions from the floor.
Can we post a link? Have you done already a link to this document in the chat?
Yep, I will.
That's what Tina's just asked as well.
Yeah, the link directly to the table, I hope. So in the chat. Sorry for the long URL rather than a Some really amazing stuff that people are planning to do. Oh, Alison, Lancaster Uni. Yeah, we have some Equatio guides teaching students how to use Equatio. I don't know if that would be of use to you. I can certainly quickly jump to that and share that link with you. Right, so we've got this learn to use Equatio by working through our exercises. Feel free to, it makes a copy of a Google Doc. But yeah, feel free to pinch, etc. It's very rude of me invading your role. Okay. Thank you, Steve. I like your. That's where we all started. Believe me. I think, have we been going for about feels like about 2 years now, at least 18 months. We all started with like, what the bleep are we all talking about? So one of the first things we did was to do the glossary. So yeah, here's our LI Maths link, which is again in the shared doc.
While you put in the link there, I wondered, we had on GitHub, we had like the stories of the meetings that were going after each meeting. But in the last meeting, we then had like a Word document. I wasn't at the one in September, but the versions of that one seemed to be like a Google Doc rather than a
because we worked on the table together.
Okay.
Which is a table we've just updated. So what I'm going to do is, in terms of the meeting stories, I'm just going to add a link, a reminder of what we did at that meeting and link back to this table. I think the only way to really see progress or the impact of this group is to actually bother to record it. And I really appreciate seeing it in text rather than video. Can kind of just be quite time consuming to look through.
So when I missed the last one, I went to go and find the story thing. It turned out that there was actually instead a doc to follow in the email.
Yeah, so we're running a little bit behind, which is why we co-opted Cordelia and Luke. Yay, to help us out. Jenny's super busy as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep on with the agenda, but definitely I'm going to come back to Chirun because I don't want to put pressure on Christian, but it's something more people are interested in. So Luke's mentioning perhaps wondering what we can do to help, but I'm just wanting to review recent Jiscmail items. So again, maybe it may be easier if I share screen so that if anyone's watching the recording instead, they can more easily see what's happening. Okay, so we're not a high traffic mailing list by any means, but it's nice that sometimes we get people telling us about events or things that we can maybe try and publish to, or things that we can attend. So that's really, really good. So this one was the Birmingham one was a little bit super technical, so I don't know if that interested some maths people here. And I like that, Jonathan, you're always announcing your tech hour, and that's how I found out about it. And certainly I find it quite nice to just immerse with other people talking about accessible maths, not just accessible maths, but the world of maths. And so yeah, do join Jonathan's tech hour if you fancy. Jonathan, do you want to say anything about your tech hour?
Yeah, I'd like to say something in any other business. Briefly, it's been going for 2 years. It meets once a week. And I want to change its focus and audience quite a bit, and I'd like it to complement and coordinate with other meetings. So I think that's in any other business topic if there's time, and I hope there is. I'll be quiet for now.
Thank you. So not a lot of high traffic on the Jiscmail list, but obviously we welcome anyone new. And if anyone has a question, feel free to use that list to ask other people, either to get involved in your, research, for instance, or if you just have an open question. So feel free to do that. Okay. So I was just going to collate ideas for another meeting and then to move on to AOB, which looks massive list. But I always thought with the AOB, worst case, it is kind of like if we run out of time, the links are there and people can explore it in their own time. Because I think it would be better if we could use some of this time for little breakout groups and people chat. So I'm going to say ideas for next meeting, and then we'll let Jonathan tell us a little bit more about his AOB item, and then we'll go into breakout groups as soon as we can. Okay. So we have the offer of a Wireless rep to talk about their math, well, not just math type, I guess, Wireless's offering to try and make maths more digital. I use the word accessible carefully with theirs because it's a very visual, it can be a very visual menu. And Luke was the one who introduced me to the Wireless rep. Would people be interested in having this rep come along and talk to us? I don't know if you can see your reactions and just do a kind of thumbs up or a thumbs down almost. I'm seeing one thumbs up.
Sorry, say again what we're being asked.
Okay. If I was faster, I'd have set up a poll of some kind. Just basically, do we want the Wireless rep to give us 10 minutes of her time in this meeting? Part of me would be like wanting to ask her why could you make it more accessible? I don't know if, yeah, Cordelia's nodding. I'm certainly kind of like, what if someone needs to do keyboard access? What can you do for them? There might be something already there that we don't know. Okay, cool. So we'll take that away and definitely invite her for the next meeting. We could also ask George, who has been at these meetings once or twice from Westminster, to share with us where he's at with his tactile resources. Because accessible maths isn't just about digital. There are kind of tactile things that could enhance the learner's understanding as well. So that's another topic. Again, just maybe a thumbs up, or I don't think you can do that in emoticons, but oh, Luke, that's useful to know, a new Wireless version. Okay. Okay. So yeah, thank you, Steve, for finding that emoticon. Right. So let's lower down the list. Now, feasible solutions for long descriptions. I literally just plonked that there as a reminder to me. I think at some point, this group is going to get to the point where we're going to discuss things like charts, graphs, the things that accompany maths learning, not just equations. And certainly we had to do that battle with where do we put longer descriptions of these charts and graphs, especially in a assessment, right? So someone's doing a digital assessment, they have the extra time, but they need to be able to see this extra information without it distracting sighted users. So we're just using detailed summary tags, and it's working quite well. And I have seen it in like WCAG related sites as well. So it's quite a good solution. So I'm happy to just show you what we do to make that happen. And again, votes. and or meh emoticons. Okay, thank you. No, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to say one thing in AOB, then going to pass to Jonathan, and then if anyone else has any questions about the AOB stuff, speak. Otherwise, we'll go into breakout groups. Okay. Thanks for that. So I'm just looking at the chat. Oh yeah, sorry. One more thing about Chirun, and then we'll do breakout groups. So yeah, our accessible maths journey, just to say that we are going to be published in MSOR towards the end of the year. And just to say, as a group, it would be really, really good if whatever you're exploring at your uni, you can think about writing it up and publishing it in MSOR. It would be really nice for us not just to keep our collective memory on this document, but to actually bother publishing it so it's there for future accessible maths geeks to discover, you know, and to maybe build on the work that we're doing here. So I really would encourage people to consider publishing. Natalie and I were at a Tech Ability conference yesterday, again, selling the accessible maths stuff that we know. And so, yeah, I think it's spreading the word. That's really, really good work. So I'm going to pass to Jonathan Fine.
Okay, first of all, let me say that I'm not in academia because I'm retired, so nobody pays me for anything. And I sort of come as somebody who's a stalwart of the tech community and sees that LaTeX has come towards the end of its life because it's a PDF, which means a paper-oriented system. And that has an enormous impact on things. Whereas today, mobile devices in particular are important. So I participate a lot in the blind math list and the visually impaired programmers list. And there are some people on the blind math list who were interested in learning LaTeX. And so I offered to help them and sort of interacted with them online. And we're starting to meet on a weekly basis. And one of the things that I saw as a real possibility was creating cheat sheets or formula sheets, as teachers might prefer to call them, using something like Quarto as the delivery platform. And that seems to be going successfully. And I've asked them to get hold of PDF formula sheets that can then be converted or retyped to become accessible for them. Now, something that is emerged since only very recently is a website that is a useful guide to LaTeX math. The rest of LaTeX is not particularly important regarding accessibility. It's the math that's important. And what I have in mind is a place where a beginner can go in and create an accessible formula, even if the beginner is blind or visually impaired. So that's the target I have, and it's motivated by the students I have and the need they have to be able to create accessible mathematics so that they can read it, and it has to be in a form that their teachers can read it. So one of the students was using Nemeth Braille at high school and is now going to college. And at college, they don't know Nemeth Braille. And the conversion system that she has doesn't work. And that's her motivation for learning LaTeX math. So that's the goal to which I'm working at the moment. And the Hello World version of that site is that you can type something like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or the quadratic formula in LaTeX math, and it comes out rendered beautifully using Mathjax. And even if you're blind, you can proofread what you've created. And in addition, the website should allow formulas to be saved and shared and published. But that's more a web developer sort of thing than an accessibility and LaTeX sort of thing. So that's where I'm going at the moment. Now, in terms of the Tech Hour, I've got 3 weekly meetings now. Blind programmers, the meeting with the blind math students and the Tech Hour. I'm going to put the Tech Hour quiet for a bit and resume it in the new year, perhaps in a new name. So the question I'm interested in is how to best position things, maintaining the focus on text, I think. So accessibility of text and text in STEM and mathematics in STEM, but not graphs and not really figure descriptions, except there has to be a place for them. So that's my sort of opportunity and request for help. And I think I should stop. I can see Lillian nodding, so I'm doing okay. So I'll mute myself now because I always speak too much.
Thank you for that. I think it's a really fine example of being able to kind of help people get started. And I would suggest that the STEM with an extra M website, accessible STEM and Maths introduction, making things accessible website. That's the one. Let me see if I can get that may be a good place to promote stroke post your resource from the point of view of ensuring it gets to the right audience as well, which is very much a getting started with type of idea, as a repository idea, which I think is really good. I'm going to hand over to Christian. You've added a few things around Chirun, which I think would be, and also this line breaking in Mathjax, which is worth just us discussing.
Okay. I'll do it in reverse order how you mentioned it. I think that line breaking came up this week because a lecturer noticed that in one of their numbers exams they had a very long line of maths, wider than the displayed width screen. So it gets a scroll bar is how we've got it set up, and he expected there to be a line break automatically. So I thought, oh, I'm sure I looked into Mathjax's automatic line breaking, turned it on hastily, and then started getting reports from people of it breaking lines in really weird places into really narrow boxes. I think the reason line breaking isn't in Mathjax 3 is that it's really difficult, and the implementation in version 2 was never that good. And I think that's why we didn't have it turned on originally. So I'm not, my current thought is that automatic line breaking isn't good enough to have turned on. You either need to give it a lot of information about where it can break, which Mathjax doesn't really give you the tools to do that, or you also need to make sure that the box that it would render into is as wide as it possibly can be to begin with. Yeah, so if anybody has any experience with it just being turned on habitually and it seems fine, please tell me, because maybe I'm doing something wrong.
I'll say a couple of words about line breaking mathematics, which is that there was a person called Michael Downs who unfortunately died early from an aggressive form of cancer, who was principal author of the AMS LaTeX packages. And I was fortunate enough, he visited the country to have a conversation with him about it, because he wanted to do automatic line breaking of mathematical formulas, and he wondered if I could help him. And we discussed it, and we thought, well, there's nothing really that you can do. The way things stand, it's much too complicated. And part of the difficulty is the left and right delimiters that grow in size. I'll just post to the chat a notice of the death of Michael Downs, so that you know who he is and it's in the record. So from the LaTeX side, it's quite difficult. And I I'd be reluctant as a Mathjax developer to move myself so far away from LaTeX that I'm doing things that LaTeX can't keep up with, because the lack of compatibility is potentially a very, very big problem. And I'm only interested in that part of LaTeX which is compatible. I'm only interested in the intersection of LaTeX and Mathjax. If it's not in the intersection, I'm not interested in it because it causes problems. I'll mute myself again.
I don't know if the mathematicians among us can contribute any insights into, I mean, the same must happen on printed maths as well, but I guess the author makes a little bit more of a judgment call on where to break the maths up. And the problem with any automation is, or maybe until AI happens, that can work out where's best to do a line break. It sounds like it's a bit all or nothing at the minute, and it's probably choosing a lowest common denominator expression point at which to break. So after every plus or after every, division or multiplication or something.
Yeah,
Cordelia,
from what I
do you
know,
have any thoughts?
sorry.
No, it's choosing where to, from a very mathematical point of view, choosing where to break a line it really depends on what you're writing. So I don't think there is a fast and hard, even after a plus sign, you can have within a statement different plus signs where you really wouldn't want to break it and some where you would. So it's hard to do that automatically.
I can't remember when I last played with it. I mean, obviously, I have the same problems Christian has over life. Like basically, LaTeX, every so often you suddenly discover there's an enormously long line for some bizarre reason. It's just there that LaTeX not handled correctly. I don't remember there was a command in LaTeX for like telling it if you do break the line, break it here. Is that? I feel like there are some packages that can do that. I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, you have to set it up in such a way that like you're writing, when you write the equation, you tell it this is an equation that might need breaking later, and if you do break it later, then break it here. But that's not automatic. That's then you're doing that every time you write an equation, and then you put it on an HTML page and shrink the size of the window, and everything breaks.
Josh?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we had something similar with our distance learning provision a few years ago, and it was a case of kind of educating authors that actually, line breaking, automatic line breaking isn't really going to happen. It's best that you take ownership and take control. And if things are going to, if you're thinking about your mobile users as a way to sort of address, as a kind of litmus test for is it going to be a problem, then put line breaks in, because otherwise you're going to get something that you might not like or might not be useful to students.
Jonathan, and then back to Christian.
I'll be a proxy for my blind users, but I'm not really a proxy. I'm pretending to be them. But so for a blind person writing mathematics, it's the opposite problem. So you have two fraction commands at least. You have \frac and \dfrac, and the dfrac is the display fraction, which is bigger, and it has no semantic difference and it has no audible difference. And a blind user won't know whether dfrac or frac will be the right thing in this setting. Similarly, the left and right parentheses can be made to grow or not grow depending on the content inside them. There are two versions of those commands, and the blind user won't want to know those, won't want to be bothered with those things. So the way I see things is actually completely different, which is you get something that works for the blind users, and then if we have to put delimiters that get bigger because there's an integral inside the parentheses, the system knows that and does the right thing. And I see the primary responsibility of LaTeX mathematics in the accessibility context and also in the theorem proving context is getting the semantics right. And that's going to be more important. So all these sort of typographic niceties that reproduce the wonderful typography of the 1990s is important for print and so forth, but we have to have a stream of development where we ignore those niceties and say somebody else will fix them. That's my point of view, pretending to be a blind user, is I don't care about the typography, I just care about the accessibility, and let's get that right. And so I only want one fraction command. As a blind user, I only want one fraction command. And I only want one left parenthesis command, etc. Because I can't see the difference. There's no point to it. And if we don't fix that for the sighted people, then we're disadvantaging the blind people.
Have you got your answers, Christian, do you think?
Yeah, that's reassuring. I think that I'm not just missing something obvious.
Yeah.
What I was going to say before was when we were talking about, someone was talking about semantics. I think the Mathjax team's plan, and Volker in particular, is to use the stuff from the speech rule engine that they use for screen readers to sort of induce some semantics from an expression and use that to pick good breakpoints. But my memory is that that didn't go well when he tried it. Yeah, so I think that's where we're up to. Yeah, did you want me to talk about Chirun?
Yes, please.
What do you want me to say? I put one
That
thing.
it's all done and we can all install it and it's all going to work fine.
The bane of my life. Yeah, so we've started using it at Newcastle properly this year. The new LTI tool, which I was working on, is now in place and seems to be going okay. I'm keen to share it outside Newcastle though, so I think the next thing we need to do is test it with VLEs that aren't Canvas. So if your institution uses something that isn't Canvas, and you can, if you have like a development environment that I can give you instructions for, I'd like to test it with that.
I think Luke and I maybe can volunteer Blackboard, you know, Lucy as well, maybe. I don't know if you can wangle it with your development server.
I might not, because Leeds have this fun rule about having only cloud-based systems installed because we haven't got an actual server. Well, they're trying to get rid of the server.
So I should say, unlike the numbers LTI tool, which we've always said you have to install locally, for Chirun, because it's not going to be handling any student data, we are currently aiming we will run a server and you can add it as an LTI tool in your VLE.
Then sign me up. I might be able to definitely get that going if that's the case. Because I know having it in a server was always a bit of a sticking point for Leeds before. But if you don't have to do that anymore, send me more information.
And Josh as well is volunteering to test it out with Moodle if you'd like a Moodle tester as well. Okay. Okay, so and Stephen, thank you very much. So yeah, you've got a collection there of lovely volunteers. I'm going to maybe what I'll do is obviously I get a download of the chat as well, and I can kind of maybe if you like a copy of the chat, you can certainly download it yourself. I think under the chat there's 3 dots and you can just save the chat. So yeah, maybe do that if you'd like access to the lists of people who have contacted each other on the chat. So I know there's only about 7 minutes left officially. What I am still going to do is suggest that we get put into little breakout groups for a chat. And if you have to go on the dot, by all means, just leave. And anyone who's finding that their groups quickly dwindle can come back into the main room, and then we'll have a kind of final kind of end of call, maybe 10 past the hour. So I'm going to suggest that the reason why I do think it's quite important to have breakout groups is so that everyone has a voice and a little bit of chance to get to know someone else in this group. I find those relationships really help people to keep coming back. So I'm going to create 4 breakout groups, but I'm going to stay in this room in case anyone finds everyone in their group has left. Okay, so here we go. Open all rooms. So feel free to join your room or to stay here.
This meeting is being recorded.
I've just been teleported.
That was very loud. So hopefully everyone had a nice little time. Hi, Hi, Mini Constantina. So hopefully everyone had a nice little chat and got to know a few other people. So you always know that when you join this group, you're guaranteed to make a few new friends and see some familiar faces. And that's how we'll keep going. So without further ado, I am now going to stop the recording.